As the 2014-15 Louisville basketball team gets set to make a run through March Madness, we take a look back at the 1980 Cardinals. Led by Darrell Griffith, it was a team destined for success. And it all began right here in Freedom Hall.
People always had high hopes for Louisville, but they had had some disappointing season endings the last couple of years. They lost the year before to Arkansas in the NCAA tournament. The year before that, I think, was a double overtime loss to DePaul in the tournament. And especially after that Arkansas loss, I remember Darrell Griffith had kind of a bad game there. And Darrell really set it upon himself that his senior year wasn't going to be a bust.
Back in '76, I had 2 goals when I signed with the University of Louisville. And that was to get my degree in 4 years and win a national championship. And in 1980, the clock was about to strike.
He worked really hard in the off-season on his jump shot, shooting it with more arch, shooting over volleyball standards, and I mean he just got better and better, worked on his ball handling, and so the guys drew a lot of the strength, I think, from him.
Louisville began the season 2-0 with wins over South Alabama and Chattanooga. And in their third game, the Cards traveled to Knoxville to play at Tennessee. Early in the first half, Scooter McCray, who was the team's starting center, went down with a knee injury.
We had a timeout of some sort. It could have been a foul call or something, I'm not sure, and went to the bench. And got the instructions from Coach Crum, started to go back out on the floor and realized I couldn't walk. And so I just told him something's wrong with my knee. And so at that time, it kind of swole up, and didn't know that I had torn my meniscus until probably when we returned back to Louisville.
Boy, I thought when Scooter went down, the way Rodney's been practicing, I said, you know, this season may come to a quick halt.
Rod didn't understand the expectations of what it took to be a college player, the conditioning that went in, the practicing, pushing yourself in practice all the time.
Throughout the whole preseason, he didn't do anything. I mean, he just lollygagged around.
He was always what you call a gamer. He was just, let's play the real games and let's see who shows up and can play in that capacity. And so when I went down, he and I talked, and the light bulb went off in his head on how hard he had to practice and push himself.
It was like there was a complete transformation of mental approach and effort and attitude and performance. I mean, when Scooter went down, Rodney stepped in there, and we didn't miss a beat.
After an 8-2 start, the Cards rattled off 18 straight wins. The team was having a blast, and the players say they enjoyed every moment of the ride.
We probably had the best personalities that you could ever run across. Full of life, that's all I can tell you. You know, everybody full of spirit, full of life, good guys, no issues. Pranksters all the time, you had to watch yourself.
It was a fun group of guys. I mean, we wrestle sometimes. You know, back then it was the wrestling thing was I remember tearing up a couple of hotel rooms because we'd be all in there wrestling and body slamming each other. And we were just like a bunch of kids, you know, like a bunch of brothers just growing up and having a good time. And you know, it's how can you beat that?
We had a fun team. We had a fun nucleus of a team, and nobody took anything serious, and we were always, you know, just throwing darts at each other.
Don't forget Coach Houston, because Wade Houston was a character. And he was a prankster. He would always be pulling little jokes on people and, you know, having people paged in the airport as we're walking from one terminal to the next, you know, to go to the nearest, you know, telephone or something.
He would go to Caulfield's, which is a novelty shop on Market Street that got different kind of prank stuff, and he would do stuff with us in high school. I mean, I remember one incident in high school where we had a guy that traveled with us named Irv Sellers, and he was a part of the correctional facility. So he had handcuffs on him and guns, stuff like that, and we would travel with him. And Irv went to sleep one night, and Coach got his keys and handcuffed him to the table. I mean, Coach would do so many things to disrupt people. He was just fun. Anything that would come up, everybody would look up and say, Coach did that.
you know, we just had a great time together. I don't remember a time to where it was a bad time, and you got to give credit to Coach Crum because he stayed very much the same. The wins and the losses were the same. You didn't see him get high and low, press conferences up and down. He stayed the same. When we won, he was happy for us, and when we lost, he'd always said, let's make sure we learn something and let's move on.
Even though we played some really other good competition, it just seemed like our guys didn't know that or didn't think anyone was good enough to beat them. So we didn't lose many that year.
We gained confidence each game we had played. And then there was a stretch of games that we didn't play well. Probably about 5 games. We were winning, but we didn't play well. And it all came to head in Madison Square Garden when we lost to Iona.
That whole trip was jacked, okay, because there was a huge snowstorm. We were caught in the airport for 10 hours. Then we had to drive a bus to West Virginia somewhere out in the mountains. And I mean, it was just a nightmare trip.
They gave us a rude awakening in the Garden. I mean, Jeff Ruland was a monster.
You know, he gets 40 against us, right? Okay, now 3 nights later, because we're coming back through all this blizzard and all this crazy travel that we're on, I grab a paper and I see they played like Wagner College and he had 4. Okay, so explain that one.
We had a team meeting afterwards and said, hey, we've been winning, we've been playing like crap. You know, like we faced Iona, they caught us in a bad game, which we had bad games prior to that. And after that game, we just woke up and realized that we had to get back on the pace that we were during that stretch, the beginning of that stretch, in order to achieve the goals we set out for ourselves.
The loss to Iona was a real eye-opener for a number of the players, and it happened just in the nick of time. Over the next few weeks, the Cards will be tested by a gauntlet of NCAA tournament games. We'll relive that magical run when we return. After winning the regular season finale against Florida State and claiming the Metro Conference Tournament title, it was time for the Cards to take the stage at the NCAAs. First up was a gritty Kansas State team who nearly ended the dream run before it could even begin.
You get a little nervous, you know, because it's one and done. And so we go out and Kansas State really plays us real well. And it's a nip and tuck game.
I fouled out. When I went to the bench and said, Lord, please don't let this be the last time I wear this jersey. And my roommate, Tony Branch, came in and saved the day.
It couldn't have been scripted any better. Couldn't have happened to a better person. Tony Branch gets the ball, you know, and drives to the free throw line and kind of gets trapped by 2 of their defenders and, you know, ducks through, throws up a little 15-footer that, you know, with just a couple seconds on the clock. It was one of those shots that like hit the front of the rim, hit the back of the rim, hits the front of the rim, and falls in. And no time on the clock. They didn't have a chance to call timeout or anything, and we win the game.
71-69 was the final score, and next up was Texas A&M. Once again, Louisville would be pushed to the limit.
It was a battle. You know, we battled them to the end, and finally we got control of the game in the overtime. And I'll never forget this, a great story, Tony Branch. Okay, Tony Branch is at the free throw line. And Tony had not missed a free throw all season long. And I'm standing in the back, you know, behind him as he gets the ball from the official. And I hear Coach Crum say, hey, Tony. Now, Tony's got the ball. You never see that. There's no coach who goes, hey, Tony, you think you ought to miss this one?
Prior to that, Tony Branch hadn't missed a free throw at all during the season, and because Coach Crum had a player in the past that was perfect, missed a free throw in the Final Four, he was very superstitious about this.
Well, I lived through Terry Howard's miss, so I was sitting there, Tony, miss, please, miss. Because I lived through that 75, and when he missed that free throw, I was heartbroken. So I understand where Coach was coming from, just to get the monkey off his back because he had not missed one all year. Let's miss one now so that we can make them when we need them. So I was in concord with that. I was like, no question, miss Tony.
With a 66-55 win, the Cardinals moved on to the Elite Eight. Standing in their way was LSU, the #1 seed in the Midwest region.
We went into that game the underdog, okay? And no one had picked us to beat LSU. LSU was coming in off a tremendous season. They had, you know, Dwayne Scales, big 7-foot guy, and Greg Cook, another big 7-foot guy, and then of course Rudy Macklin, who's a Louisville guy, who's one of the better players in the country that year.
That game was special in particular because it was he was playing against his hometown, and we had a good game against them. Coach Crum came up with a good game plan. We were just as talented. They had a little bit more publicity than us, but we were just as talented as they were. We never feared or never wavered on how talented we were. We know we could go up against anyone.
There was a lot of that and parts of the game sometimes you don't see. You just hear somebody go, oh, So it was it was a great match. It was a great matchup.
And Darryl got in early foul trouble, and they thought, uh-oh, Darryl's got his second foul, and he had to sit down the first half, and we ran amok through LSU. So, it was a learning process, and it helped us get to the place where we wanted to be.
Once we beat LSU, that really lifted our confidence that truly we had a chance to probably win a championship.
Louisville beat Iowa in the Final Four, so now only UCLA stood in the team's way. But before they could even play the Bruins, the Cardinals experienced a loss off the court.
Wiley had a prosthetic thumb that he would put on in practice, but he would carry it to him when we eat breakfast. So evidently he had left the thumb on the table.
Unbeknownst to him, he didn't pick it up after we had finished eating. And as they come in to clear the tables and take the plates and forks and everything away, they didn't know what it was. They just saw something plastic sitting on the table, and they took his prosthetic thumb and threw it away in the garbage. So he got back to his room and realized he didn't have his thumb.
And then they had already taken this garbage out to the garbage dump out there, and we're out there digging through this garbage to find this prosthetic thumb.
So they looked in the garbage and they found the thumb, had bacon and eggs in the thumb, so they had to clean it out and bring it back to practice. True story.
I don't know what would have happened if he hadn't had it, but we finally found it.
That kind of became a big joke at the time, and maybe one of those good sort of distractions to take their mind off the gravity of where they were, what was at stake.
Sometimes there'll be events and things that happen that get your kids to laugh and loosen up, and it very well may have helped us.
If it helped ease the nerves of some of the players, Jerry Eves was not one of them. When the team took the court at Market Square Arena, Eves says he was overcome by the magnitude of the game.
I just remember when the official asked Darryl, they had asked the two captains, are you ready to start the game before they toss it up? And he asked Darryl, and Darryl said yes, and he asked Kiki Vanderway, and Kiki said yes, and I was sitting there at the jump circle. I'm not ready, give him time out. I need a break here, because I just realized everyone in the country is watching this game. There are no other games. It's the only game being played on Monday afternoon, and no pro games, no college games, and it was the first time I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm ready.
We never really got going in the first half, and I think you give UCLA the credit for that. I told them at halftime that I thought it was a shame that we got this far, playing our tough, aggressive style of defense and not giving up very much, and then just be passive, in this particular championship game. I said, you don't get these opportunities very often. I said, you need to play with a little more heart. Just get out there and get after them. Play like you do in Crawford Gym.
When it came down to it, it was, a star taking over, Darryl Griffith stepping up, being a senior. Jerry played a huge part. He made the defensive play of the year.
Big key play was when Jerry Eves disrupted Kiki Vanderway on the breakaway layup he had, and that changed the momentum late in the game. So
I ran in front of him. Wiley Brown got the defensive rebound, and after that, Darryl hit the shot. It was history. And even though Kiki was breaking away for a layup, the fact that Jerry just ran in front of him and didn't foul him and caused him to miss the layup, and then we came down and scored, that totally changed the game and the mindset of UCLA. Now they were fighting an uphill battle. We had all the momentum with the crowd behind us.
From that point on, we played like the Louisville team that we'd had all year long. Our defense just seemed to get a little bit better, and we put a little more pressure on them, and we ended up, 59-54.
You realize now that you're the last team standing out of this whole NCAA tournament, that you're really going to win a championship, and just joy and emotion starts to pour through your body as the crowd is going crazy, your teammates are going crazy.
That's something you never want to forget, or you want it to last forever. Okay, that is that euphoria, just the making it to the top pinnacle, and it's hard to explain. It's hard to describe.
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, you know, I was just, it was just so much joy running through my mind, and my mind rewinded through the course of the whole season in about a minute, because it just started, this scripts just started coming up of what we did to get to that point. And then more importantly, you know, I was trying to visualize how the fans and the citizens of Louisville were reacting to what we had just achieved, because they'd been waiting for so long.
I mean, there were people out in the streets when we got back on the bus. Everywhere you drove, there were people out yelling and screaming and waving their red flags and their banners and their, I don't know what all with their red shirts on. And I mean, it was all over town. This whole town just went berserk.
It was jubilation. I think maybe some relief in a sense, because Louisville had been so close so many times before. They'd been to Final Fours before, but had never gotten that final game. And there was great pride. I think the city of Louisville really rallied around that team, was very proud of that team, and was proud to call them their own.
For the Cards, winning a national championship was an incredible feat, and it's something that bonded these players together forever. Coming up next, we'll take a look at where the team stands now and remember one former Card whose life ended far too soon. As the school's first ever national champion, the 1980 U of L basketball team will forever be remembered in the program's storied history. But the bonds these players built extend far beyond the basketball court. They form relationships that are still standing strong 35 years later.
I don't think you could go through that and accomplish what we were able to accomplish and not have a special bond.
It's a well-knit, close group. So that's what I think that championship did for us. It helped bond us after the playing days were over, and being that we did it in a community that was so supportive of it, a lot of us remained here.
And me and Jerry Eves were the only guys on that team that were from Louisville, but everybody else was from out of town. And the only members of that team that did not live here is Rodney McCray and Poncho Wright. Everybody else still here. Everybody else live here, you know, because the communities, they feel loved. They feel, you know, there wasn't other place for them to live and to accomplish the things they want to accomplish, because they feel comfortable here.
Winning the championship, knowing how hard guys had worked, bonded us for the rest of our lives. We've been friends. You tend to carry yourself like a champion. You tend to represent your community, your university, and yourself and your family like a champion.
While the team's bond remains strong, the Cardinals are now missing one of their key pieces. Derek Smith, who went on to have a decorated U of L and NBA career, died on a cruise ship in 1996. To this day, his memory still holds strong with his teammates.
Derek had a great smile, and his sense of humor was just unbelievable. And he was a kid that had so much hope in his eyes. You know, you seen his smile, and you seen his eyes, and you knew that he aspired to be something. He came from Hogansville, Georgia to Louisville to be somebody.
And he brought his clothes that he had, which wasn't much, up here in a paper bag that you'd get from a grocery store or something. He didn't have any luggage. He didn't have, and he filled a paper bag with his stuff, you know, socks and underwear. And I think he only had one pair of pants.
She came from a pretty disadvantaged background in Georgia. Came here with not real good verbal skills, social skills, dress, and just didn't really know that lifestyle, but was bound and determined to learn it, to educate himself, and to grow as a person. And he did. He was a lovable guy, compassionate guy, and of course also turned into a fabulous basketball player too.
He was so nice and polite and unassuming, and I mean, just got along with everyone. Everyone that ever met him loved him, and yet when he'd step on the floor, it's like two different personalities. You wouldn't want to, and nobody wanted to on our team, guard him or play against him. Even in pickup games out there, it was like it was the last game he was ever going to get to play. He played that way every day.
And the way he transformed his life, not just speaking basketball, because I know the skills were there, but as a human being, from the time Derek got here to listen to him speaking, to the way he had became this special and endeared person, it's heartwarming to see him turn into something good, and it's hard not seeing him around when we get together to do our celebrations of what we accomplished every 5 years.
Everybody looks at it to look at where you came from, what kind of house home. Didn't make any difference. He had the largest heart and the most character of anybody I've ever been around. You know, he stood for something from the day he stepped on UofL's campus until the day he died. And, you know, I'll never forget that, but he was richest to richest.
I spoke at Derek's funeral and just said those words, that if we all could take a little bit of what he used to do and encourage other people, just be nice and push them to excel at whatever they wanted to do, we would all be better off.
Derek Smith and the 1980 Louisville Cardinals will always be remembered as the team that won that elusive first national championship. For the team in the city, it's a moment that might never be outdone.
Oh, it was major. I mean, you know, it was one of the landmark wins, the landmark victory for the city in a lot of reasons. You know, for one, you got a metropolitan at the time university that was considered a good team, but they can't put it together.
It was a school that was known in the state as the little brother to Kentucky because the two hadn't played in a long time and Kentucky had won championships. So Louisville always knew they had a great basketball program, had been to the Final Four several times, but just had not gotten that championship banner.
No matter what, the first ones are always the first ones. And you know, we kind of broke the ice, and then the 86 team did it, and my 82 team had a chance to do it. We got to the Final Four, but it really took that first team to go ahead and accomplish the goals of winning it. So it's just something that I keep with me forever, because to me, most important thing other than having my kids and getting married.
It was like having your first child. Okay, it's like, it's the greatest thing in the world.
If I could have went on in the NBA and won 5 NBA titles, nothing would overshadow what we did here in Louisville. It's just, you know, it was the highlight of my sports career, playing at the University of Louisville and winning the national championship. I mean, you just don't, it's hard to imagine how a hometown guy like myself felt to be able to give a city something that they so desired for so many years. You know, it was a blessing. It was a highlight of my sports career.